When I think of really indulgent games that just revel in themselves, one that always comes to mind is Just Cause. The truly ridiculous way that you can play with the physics was satisfying for me to no end. To the point that I rarely ever got into a vehicle. I spent most of the time ziplining and wingsuiting and parachuting myself across the gorgeous islands until I had to take a boat or helicopter where my wingsuit couldn't reach. Rage 2 reminds me of Just Cause for that exact reason. It just doesn't take itself seriously. This is a really, really fun game. They're both from the same developer, Avalanche Studios, and Rage 2 plays like Just Cause crossed with Doom, set at Burning Man. It's wild, it's weird, it's colourful, it's over the top, and it's just so much fun. The world that they've built here is incredible. It's a deep, rich take on a post-apocalyptic world that's full of life and colour. It's divided into these sort of distinct biomes that give real variety to the land that you explore. And that sets it apart from games like Fallout, I think, where there's a bit of variation, but mostly everything kind of falls into that category of being beige and dead and crumbling, you know? The world does bite back though, and there are all kinds of hostile enemies waiting in the wings to descend on you. If you spend long enough in any structure, you can guarantee that you'll have been followed there by some baddies and they'll be waiting outside to take shots at you. But don't worry, you will be more than well enough equipped to take them out. This game is spilling with so many awesome weapons and powers, and the combat is outstanding. It's definitely a highlight of this game. There's rarely any adjustment time on learning to use a new weapon once you've unlocked it. They're intuitive to use and massively impressive to pull off well. Once you've chosen your preferred weapons, there's also a selection of powers to choose from for you to rack up combos with: a ground slam, a force push, a barrier shield. There's so much to play with here that you can constantly switch up how you play the game. Racking up these combos generates overdrive, and when you activate overdrive, every weapon becomes a sort of more powerful version of itself. When you're on a roll, decimating dozens of enemies and lighting up the screen with beautiful particle effects, it's just so satisfying. The graphics of the world and the characters are great, but the game's real beauty is how the neon aesthetic is fed through the explosions, powers, vehicle design, and even the menus and navigation system. Speaking of navigation though, I really struggled to get the vehicle controls down. There seems to be very little connection between the size of the vehicle you're controlling and the weight. Every little spin out counts when the vehicle combat can get as busy as it does in this game. It can get pretty frustrating in the moment when your car is acting like it's made of roller skates. But you will get used to it eventually. You have to. The game is set in a big sandbox, and many missions involve the use of vehicles and the weapons attached to them. As you traverse the map, you'll also run into many variations of what essentially boils down to, bandit camps. Just like with any sandbox game, they're fun, they keep the world alive, but I don't know, it just all feels so familiar. This is probably more of an issue I'm having with sandbox games at large lately, and not just Rage 2, but to me, all sandbox games seem to be the same type of thing with just slightly different aesthetics slapped on. It doesn't do a whole lot to innovate the sandbox style of gameplay, but games like Rage 2 and Just Cause that encourage you to have fun and screw around are definitely on the more palatable side of this problem for me. Rest assured, there are many ways to screw around in Rage 2. There are so many mechanics that I often found myself neglecting certain powers or weapons simply because I had favourites, and this game gives you a lot of ways to have fun, but gets very busy. This is a pro and a con really, because as I said earlier, it's really fun to choose your favourites and satisfying to pull off huge combos with them, but I just felt like in the heat of battle I really didn't use everything as much as I could have. It can just sometimes make things feel a bit manic. I'm giving this game 3 out of 5 stars, but like a golden 3? Okay, fine, like a 4. It's a lot of fun and I highly recommend you buy it. You're definitely going to get your money's worth out of it, but it's not really making any kind of big innovations on the traditional fun sandbox. You know exactly what it's going to be when you buy it, and there's not a great deal of surprises. It's best described as I did before, a kind of sci-fi Just Cause on steroids, and you'll definitely spend dozens of hours on it. What did you think of Rage 2? Which weapon did you use the most? Let us know in the comments below. And for all the latest games and movies, visit us in-store or at webuy.com. See you next time. CeX.